Kurt Helin will be here a little later on. He was actually here over the weekend. We had a conversation about the conclusion of the NBA Western Conference Finals. Some of our conversation, which was in a special edition of SportsWrap, carried on YouTube. You can go and check that out now if you want to see the full conversation. But we have an early preview of the NBA Finals with Kurt. That is coming up a little later on. Sam Yarnell will be here. He wants to weigh in on the NBA Western Conference Finals. We'll do that with him. We'll get into more preview-related stuff with the Knicks and Spurs coming up on tomorrow's show. So we'll get into all of that. In odds and ends, there is big news to get to from the world of baseball. The Yankees had a crazy inning to talk about. NASCAR, Jerry Bonkowski is here. We'll get into it with him on the wild finish in Nashville yesterday with Denny Hamlin getting a win as well. But we start things out, as we always do, on this Monday edition of the show. It's time for the big story. And before we get to the big story, we want you to check out the Daily Wrap. It's our new Substack newsletter for the SportsWrap ecosystem. You want to know what's going on? We're talking about it in the Daily Wrap newsletter on Substack. Hit that QR code below. It's easy to subscribe. It's free. Go and do it today and check out the Substack newsletter. We appreciate you doing so. It's the Daily Wrap. All right, Spurs win Game 7. I got 3 I want to hit here, so we're going to move quick today in the big story. 3 big stories going on. The news from Oklahoma City. Where do the Thunder go from here? We know where the San Antonio Spurs are going. Heading to the NBA Finals. They're a favorite against the Knicks. I think the amount of love they're getting from the odds makers is a mistake. I think there's a missed number there. I think if you run right now to your nearest legal bookmaking institution and go and bet on the Knicks, I think you're making a good pick. That's my little foreshadowing of what we're going to talk about on the show tomorrow. But where do the Thunder go? And how do you grade a season that comes up short of the NBA Finals? Not just losing in the NBA Finals, but you didn't even make it to the NBA Finals. But you had A.J. Mitchell and Jalen Williams, who were both hurt. So you got to take that into consideration. But the play from Chet Holmgren, that's going to get so much of the conversation here in this Thunder off season. And, you know, all the bloviating loudmouths are already weighing in with what this team should do. And this is why Sam Presti is Sam Presti, and the Stephen A. Smiths and Kendrick Perkins, and I love Kendrick Perkins, of the world, have got to pump the brakes a little bit. There is this knee-jerk reaction to say, trade away Chet Holmgren. Move on from Chet Holmgren. Go get Giannis Antetokounmpo at all costs. You got all those draft picks. Do whatever you got to do. Manipulate the cap. Go and get Giannis. I got to tell you something. No matter how good you think Giannis is, it's been years since he's been able to be healthy and play the requisite number of games you want to see from a superstar, the likes of which he is. And if you think him against Wemby is going to be all that much different from what we've seen Wemby do to every big in this league, I think you got another thing coming. And Wemby's only going to get better from here. Giannis is already starting to flip towards the other side of his career. I'm not saying he's on the downside, but he's certainly a lot closer to that than he is his peak years. So this automatic conclusion that adding Giannis suddenly makes them a championship winner right away, be careful, especially with what we've seen out of Giannis from a personality standpoint here over the last few seasons. That's big story number 1. We'll talk more about it coming up in a few minutes. Big story number 2, and this one came out of nowhere today. Nobody thought that in the middle of the French Open, as week 2 gets started and all the favorites are out at the French Open, including Madison Keys, who may get a chance to play against Serena Williams, because Serena Williams announced today she's coming back at the age of 44. The 23-time Grand Slam winner, who's amassed almost $95 million in career earnings on the tennis court, is coming back. She's going to play the tune-up event in doubles at the Queens, which is the big lead-in to Wimbledon. Is she going to play singles at Wimbledon? She'll certainly get a wild card if she wants one. She'll get a wild card to play any women's event on the WTA Tour. The way Venus does, Serena will get that kind of love, if not more. Can she win, though? That's the big question. Can she win a match or two? I have no doubt in my mind that she can go and beat some of those people in those wild card rounds. But can she win 5 matches, 6 matches, 7 matches, whatever it takes to win a Grand Slam again? Because if she's not coming back to do that, why is she really doing this? She's such a competitor. To come back after 4 years off, do you know what that takes? If Serena's doing that, she's doing it for one reason. She wants to prove something to herself. Maybe it's not win a Grand Slam. Maybe her mind can't dream that big. Maybe it can't. But she's not coming back just for giggles. She's certainly not coming back just to play doubles. She's coming back because she's planning to play singles again. And that is a great thing for tennis. We'll talk more about that on tomorrow's show. Big story number 3. It's this. Penalty kicks. Can I just say this? Hey, soccer guy, shut up. And you rarely hear me use that word on this show. My father always taught me growing up, never use the word shut up. He always hated it. But shut up, soccer guy. I don't need you proselytizing to me about how great your sport is. And it's the greatest sport in the world. And then, when it comes down to it, and you're playing for all the marbles, the Champions Cup, it's PSG, it's Arsenal, 2 of the biggest clubs in all of soccer. Yes, I'm calling it soccer, I'm not calling it football. I live in the United States where football is the NFL. Get over it. Get over yourselves, soccer guy. You solve championship matches in your biggest tournaments with this? With this? With penalty kicks? Imagine if the NFL, when it went to overtime and they couldn't find a winner, they said, you know what, we'll do field goals. Or imagine if hockey said, in the playoffs, when we get past the first overtime, we'll do a shootout. Or the NBA had a free throw contest or a 3-point shootout whenever their games can't be solved in overtime. And it's the championship round. Why don't we just do a home run derby in baseball to figure out a World Series winner in Game 7? Because the game's tied going into the ninth. No! They don't do that. Penalty kicks are dumb. Sorry, you lost me, soccer guy. How great your sport is. We're coming back. Welcome back to the show. You've heard what I had to say in the big story. A little NBA and a little bit of soccer guy. Sam Yarnell is here. Oh, look, there he is. Sam Yarnell, the Spurs have vanquished the Oklahoma City Thunder to advance to the NBA Finals, where they will take on my New York Knicks on Wednesday night in San Antonio, Game 1. They ain't going to be... I talked about this with our friend Kurt Helin, and we'll have that conversation coming up a little later in the show. I got to talk to him right after the Western Conference Finals ended. He was sitting in the arena in Oklahoma City, and I got to talk to him, and I said, there ain't going to be all them Knicks fans that you see in Philadelphia and Cleveland and Atlanta down there in San Antonio. That is not going to happen. I can promise you that. You might see Spike Lee. You might see a couple of the Knicks legends. Timothy Chalamet. I don't know where he's going to be, but we'll have to wait and see. But, yeah, I think there are so many interesting angles to look at from this Thunder loss at home in Game 7 and Spurs winning. First of all, as I said in our special that we did with Kurt Helin after the game, I think the Thunder win that game if they're healthy. I think they win that game if A.J. Mitchell and J-Dub is healthy for the entire postseason. Not necessarily if he played the other night, because the fact of the matter is he's been kind of up and down this entire postseason because he hasn't been playing regularly. If he had been playing regularly, if the Thunder have their full complement of players, I think this year they beat the Spurs. But San Antonio obviously was the healthier team, and they were certainly not intimidated by this Thunder team and going in there and having to win a Game 7. We saw what they did in Game 1. They bookend this series with wins, Sam. I mean, you can't help but be impressed with what San Antonio done here. Did we lose Sam? I think we lost Sam. We'll try to get him dialed back up here. Having a little bit of a technical issue here early on in the show today. Hopefully we'll get Sam back up here in a second. I think the Chet Holmgren stuff is fascinating, though. What's going to happen with him in the offseason? As I talked about in the big story, there's going to be a lot of talking heads, a lot of loudmouths out there that are going to try to sell the Thunder on the idea that they should be dealing Chet Holmgren, maybe for Giannis Antetokounmpo, and trying to improve this team. All right. Do we have Sam back? We're checking. Looks like we do.
Right? What do we talk about all damn season, all damn playoffs long? Can Wemby stay healthy? All he's done his entire career throughout the regular season is miss 1 out of every 4 games on average that he's played in. I think it might even be more than that at this point. Can he stay healthy for an entire playoff run? And quite frankly, he has. And that's the other side of the injury luck that plays into it for the Spurs. But on the Thunder side, Jason, I mean, you know, there are a lot of conversations being had around the Spurs that are the same as we had about the Thunder last year after they won the finals. Oh, is this the worst iteration of this team we're going to see? I got news for you. Look across the matchup. Look at what just happened to the Thunder. That could very well happen to the Spurs next year. And you know, we can't get through the segment without talking about Chet Holmgren was a nothing in this series. And I say that as a diehard Wizards fan, as someone who believes that Alex Sarr was absolutely robbed of the NBA third team All NBA, I should say, for Chet Holmgren. The numbers are there to prove it. I guess the acumen was given to Chet Holmgren because he rode his way, the coattails of SGA on the way to the NBA Finals last year, and there was momentum coming off of that. Chet Holmgren was horrible. I mean, look, to the degree it looked like he didn't know how to handle a basketball. He was like juggling it when they passed it to him in Game 7. Right. It was hard to watch Chet Holmgren in this series.
All right, there's 2 things on the Holmgren thing. One, he's lucky he plays in a market like Oklahoma City. Because respectfully for our friends like Oklahoma City, if Chet Holmgren were in any other market, he would have been run out of town by the time we got on the air on Monday morning. He would have been gone. Philly, New York, LA. Well, LA, they're too busy getting a
Maybe
tan.
not Sacramento.
No, but I mean any major sports market, he's getting run out of town. He would have already been dealt away by now.
I agree.
And I heard Kendrick Perkins say it last night. And I don't know if I'd go to this extreme of saying they need to go get Giannis and replace Chet Holmgren with Giannis, you know, in this offseason. And again, with all the draft picks they have, if there's a team that is equipped to figure out a way to add a guy like Giannis and get rid of Chet Holmgren, it's them. I wonder what the sense of loyalty to Chet Holmgren is. You know, if this organization is sort of bloodthirsty enough that they would just say, hey, off of one off season, off of one bad postseason, we're going to do away with Chet Holmgren and instead, you know, go and bring in Giannis. Because I also think the other part of this, Sam, is the guy he was playing against made him look as bad as he did. I mean, a lot of this is Wemby. A lot of this is the Wemby effect, you know? So to me, I think it would be, unless you assume they're going to have to face this Spurs team every year in the Western Conference Finals, which if you do, then Chet Holmgren has to go. Otherwise, I don't know if they pull the trigger on Chet Holmgren in this offseason.
I think if there's a world where you can get rid of Chet Holmgren and end up with Giannis Antetokounmpo, there's no way that the Oklahoma City Thunder won't do that.
And a lot of draft picks, but yes.
Right, of course, because they have the ammunition to do so, like you said. On the subject of loyalty, I'll say this, right? Oklahoma City, one of the forefront front offices in terms of analytics throughout sports, right? We're not just talking about basketball at this point. We're talking about sports on the whole. When you talk about those kind of front offices and the way they operate, loyalty is not a concept that they practice. Loyalty is not something that actually exists in any of their brains. They are by the numbers, they are by the books, and whatever makes the most sense is what they're going to do, and they'll figure it out on the back end. That's why you have, as many, beefs on these kind of teams as you have. I'm looking at you, Houston. But yeah, to me, Giannis going to Oklahoma City and Chet getting off of the Thunder would be a no-brainer for anybody in Oklahoma City. Can you convince Milwaukee at this point to take that kind of a bet on a couple of picks and a guy who averaged 14 points a game in the regular season. Like, Chet Holmgren is getting a lot put onto his reputation for who he was at Gonzaga, or Arizona rather, and not who he is Gonzaga in the NBA.
You had it right. It was Gonzaga. If
those blue and red schools out west, man.
In the final 10 seconds here, though, I believe if you make him the focal point of an offense, if you tell Milwaukee we're giving you the keys, I think he could actually be really good. I would like to see it, especially with all those draft picks they're going to be getting. A Stanley Cup final preview is next. All right, Stanley Cup final kicks off on Tuesday night in Raleigh. The Las Vegas Golden Knights and Carolina Hurricanes meeting up in the Stanley Cup final. We didn't talk about the odds on the Knicks Spurs NBA final series. We'll do a lot more on that tomorrow on the show. I still think there's some value there if you're thinking about the Knicks, which I just give me the Knicks at plus 172, Sam. I not to kind of jump the gun because we'll talk about it tomorrow, but Knicks at plus 172. I mean, it's a no-brainer, isn't it?
We'll see. We'll talk about it tomorrow. That's what we call a tease in the business.
Wow, you're a pro. I am not. NHL, Vegas Golden Knights and the Carolina Hurricanes. Vegas plus 128, Carolina minus 154. And, I mean, I don't know how you bet against Vegas right now with the way they've played coming into this series, the confidence they're playing with under John Tortorella. But, I mean, Carolina has also done some great things out in the East. What have they lost? 1 game? 2 games this entire postseason? Carolina's played really well. Can I just say one thing before you give your analysis? And that's really all I want in this segment is your analysis. I talked about this with Dennis Bernstein last week. I just wonder if because they did what they did, if this is going to start a trend, not just in Vegas and not just in the NHL, but in sports, Sam, where you're going to have teams, dumping coaches at the end of the year, even if they're, have a chance to make the playoffs based on the fact that they've got a chance to make the playoffs and maybe make a deeper run by changing the head coach. You talk about organizations that don't give a damn about loyalty, about the kind of guys they bring in. There's some questionable characters that have been brought into this Las Vegas team. You can go and look it up yourself if you want. Yeah, I mean, there is. Look, there's no getting around that. I mean, Bill Foley is one of these owners that is showing he doesn't give two damns what you think. Bruce Cassidy firing the head coach that led you to a Stanley Cup, your only Stanley Cup. He doesn't care. He's gonna do whatever it takes to win.
Yeah, they're trying to call a spade, right? We're a multi-sport show. We talk about this a lot on there. They're trying to be the Kansas City Chiefs of the NHL. The problem is hockey is not football. It's not anywhere close. They're trying to be the Kansas City Chiefs of the NHL. We don't care about what your past says. We don't care about what it'll do to the team. We'll bring in because of the talent. And guess what? In a sport like the NFL, where you have a 52-man roster and a 75-man locker room, and those kind of bad apples can hide their way in the corners, that works out. In the National, you're talking about a maximum of 20 guys on a roster. That's including skaters and goalies. I'm sorry. Like, that's not something I see being, I don't see it having long-term success. I don't see it having success this year. I'm, mildly, as I've talked about on the show, shocked that they've gotten as far as they have. I think that Also, and I feel kind of bad for the guy, as I have for, gosh, going on a decade at this point. I feel bad for Mitch Marner that this is the situation that he's been put in. And I know it's great for him. First year out of Toronto, finally makes first playoff run out of Toronto, first year out of Toronto, finally makes the Stanley Cup playoffs, or the Stanley Cup final, for the first time in his life. Yeah, it's great. Guess what? No one's talking about it. Everyone's talking about how they fired their head coach with a week to go in the season, and everyone's talking about how bad of a person their goalie is, who's going on this incredible run throughout the playoffs. So to an extent, I want to be so happy for Mitch Marner, and I want to be like, yeah, Mitch, you finally did it. You got out of that horribly run organization in Toronto. But the fact of the matter is, he found himself in another horribly run organization in Vegas. So they've gotten themselves all the way this far, and there is a ton of talent in that locker room, and a ton of talent in every single line that they put out on the ice every single night. But I'm telling you, Jason, eventually the damage that they do to that locker room is going to come around and bite them in the rear end, and I have a bad feeling it's going to be in this Stanley Cup final.
I mean, look, if it hasn't gotten to them yet, and they just played Colorado, who was the best team in the NHL arguably this year, and they swept the Avalanche. I mean, if it didn't bite them in the butt then, why should I believe it's now against Carolina that it bites them in the butt? Look, Carolina's a different animal. You know, what they do from a defensive standpoint, we've all seen it by now. When they want to lock you down, they lock you down. Ask the Montreal Canadiens, the Canadiens. And, but, I mean, I don't think I don't think they lose this Stanley Cup final because of, you know, the assortment of characters they have on this team. That's like people going into Game 7 of the Western Conference Final in the NBA saying, well, I don't know if the Spurs are mature, and they've played 100 games this year. They've basically played the Thunder outstanding all year. I don't want to hear about the maturity thing. I kind of feel the same way about Vegas by now in this run to the Stanley Cup final, that if it hasn't gotten to them yet, why is it going to get to them now?
Because the Golden Knights are getting a ton of credit for beating the Avalanche, as they should, but people are not giving enough credence within that to what the Avalanche really were when they beat them. The Avalanche, despite playing, you know what, a 5-game series and a 5-game series, they were beat up after that series with the Minnesota Wild. The Minnesota Wild took it to that team about as much as you can in a 5-game series. The Golden Knights beat up a very, very run-down Avalanche team, a team that got more injured as that series went on, as a matter of fact. It just feels like the Hurricanes, the Carolina Hurricanes, they're more tested throughout this season. They're more well put together, and they're a machine that fires on all cylinders, quite frankly, more fluidly at this point than we've seen out of the Vegas Golden Knights, except for an isolated Western Conference Finals, right? You look at how they looked in that series against the Ducks. There were a lot of doubts. I would argue if there wasn't that one horrible icing call, we should probably still be playing hockey in Anaheim right now. And then you look at their series against the Mammoth. It's the Mammoth's second season in the league? Like, yeah, of course they were going to win that series. They probably shouldn't have taken 6 games to do it. So the concerns are still there for me with the Golden Knights. All that said, Jason, I'm not saying they don't have a chance, right? It's hockey. Anybody's got a chance in a freaking 7-game series. I think I'm more understanding of the line and where Vegas has set it.
In the last 20 seconds here, 5.5 is the total for games. Over is minus 196. The under is plus 158. Even with the juice to the over, I feel like it's an over 5.5 series.
Yeah, can't touch that under. Not good enough to touch that under.
We're coming back. Kurt Helin next. Welcome back to the show. Continuing the conversation on the NBA. Kurt Helin of Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com joined me on Saturday night, right after the Spurs won Game 7. And we didn't waste any time. Game 1 of the NBA Finals Wednesday night. I wanted to get Kurt Helin's thoughts. And even while he was sitting in the arena in Oklahoma City, he gave them to me.
I am curious if not only if Mitchell Robinson plays in Game 1, I know he's gotten the surgery and he wants to play through it. Guys after the surgery are usually out longer than that. We'll see what happens. But how effective can he be? It's not, granted, It's not like they rely on him for shooting.
He doesn't
and
have to
handling.
shoot. All he's got to do is be the body that knocks Wemby off his perch a little bit. And
you need somebody. You've got to have somebody be the Hartenstein. Like Isaiah Hartenstein did about as well as humanly could be done in this series on Wemby, and you need somebody to play that role. And Mitch is got to be some of that. So I think there is some of that. I still think that. Look, I think the Knicks can win this. I'm not going to end up picking them. But I think the Knicks, the way they are playing right now, they are so hot. They are so confident. So they are so they've got to get back to running the offense. They didn't have to run the offense as much through Cat in a high post kind of way in the last series because you can just hunt Harden, right? Like at the end of the day, all right, Evan Mobley's making this difficult. We'll just hunt Harden. There ain't no Hardens. Like you're done getting easy buckets, man. There's nobody to hunt here. That's that simple. And I mean, Shea went after Julian Champagny tonight. Like Champagny's a good defender, like a legitimately good defender. But that was the weakest link. And so I am curious, but if they can maintain that level of shooting, if Landry Shamet and the bench and the 8 guys deep continue to be that tight, I think they've got a chance. I really do. I told you before, I came around to them. I was a little slow to them. Like, I'm like, all right, they're hot right now. But I think what they found is more than just hot. I think that there's some substance to it that can get them there. I'm still not totally sold that. I think they're going to really struggle to defend in this series. So we'll see how it goes.
It's going to be fascinating to watch. If you were to point to one thing that's the difference between what we saw in the NBA Cup final versus these two teams going into the NBA finals, what would you say that is?
One thing to watch from that game, I went back and looked at my notes from that game because I was in Vegas for that. Mitchell, speaking of our buddy, Mitchell Robinson was huge in that game on the offensive glass. He was massive in that game on the offensive glass for them. They're going to need that from him. They're going to need a lot of second chance points because you're not going to be able to shoot as efficiently against the length and physicality of the Spurs. So I think that's huge. I think this is the real test. That was we're talking about it. This was a much more mature San Antonio team. And they said all the right things post game about, we got to win 4 more. And then Biombo's like, we've got 7 more games. And he kind of corrected himself. He's like, well, 4 more wins. But I think I am curious if there's a little, because I know the Knicks are hungry and we know they will be gritty and we know they're kind of riding that high. Is there going to be kind of a letdown in game 1? Or are the Spurs going to come in and be, having come out of this series and run into kind of a rusty, frankly, probably Knicks team, are we going to see another one of these Spurs up by 12 early kind of things?
I think it is.
That's impossible.
I think it is a fascinating game 1 from the perspective of this 15-round fight ending, the Spurs having a couple of days and then having to jump back into the fire against the Knicks. The Knicks on the long layoff. Yep. I mean, the storylines go. I think watch game 1, if that game is tight at halftime, I love the Knicks. Because if there's a chance they get run out of the gym on night 1 with the Spurs on adrenaline and the Knicks on the layoff. If the Knicks play the way they did again in game 1 against the Cavaliers coming off that layoff after beating the Sixers, they're getting run out of the gym in San Antonio.
And it's going to be a very hyped crowd. Also, it's going to be interesting to see. I think it's going to be a little harder for Knicks fans to get in.
Oh yeah,
this is in Cleveland, man.
It would have been harder it would have been harder in Oklahoma City. I think they'll get some tickets in San Antonio, but it ain't going to be many.
No, it's not. It's not going to be the level that we saw in where the Cavaliers fans had rolled over by Game 4. Not that, by the way, not that I totally blame them. If I had tickets for Game 4 and I was a Cav fan, I might have tested the market.
True.
But that said, I think you're right that game 1 is going to be interesting, and then the adjustments and how they play through that, and how confident, like I said, just how confident. This is a much more mature, confident team, I think, in San Antonio than it was back in December. But those Spurs, we'll see. those Spurs beat the Thunder to get to that NBA Cup Finals, and we've all been waiting for the NBA Cup Final rematch. I mean, it's always been the dream.
Listen, Adam Silver's in seventh heaven right now, Kurt.
No, he is.
He is. He's got the NBA Cup, which, a lot of people were kind of skeptical about. He's got the rematch of that. He's got the Knicks in the finals, short of LeBron and the Lakers going against the Knicks. What more could he ask for? He
has got exactly what he needs, which is, like you said, the New York Knicks and Jalen Brunson, but the brand, I will still say the Lakers are probably the biggest brand, but the second biggest brand is as big a brand, right? They're the Red Sox to the Yankees, if you want to, or Dodgers to the Yankees, however you want to battle that out. Going against Wembanyama, who is fast becoming. Yeah. By the way, how good a day for Wemby, a PSG fan who got to watch them beat Arsenal and then go out and advance to the NBA Finals. That's a good day, man.
We're talking NASCAR in Nashville. Jerry Bonkowski is next. Odds and Ends wraps it up 10 minutes from now. Whole bunch of stories to get to. Also, an exciting announcement on a new expansion of the SportsWrap universe that we'll tell you about coming up in about 10 minutes. Let's talk NASCAR. Bring in this guy, Jerry Bonkowski. EssentiallySports.com. Does a great job on auto racing there. And we are graced with his presence today to talk about what happened in Nashville yesterday. Was it? I mean, look, I got shut out watching the last 50 laps. I'm literally going through every device. My Prime Video was having issues for some reason connecting to the race. I could watch anything else, but I could not watch the race. So I'm literally following it online, and people are losing their minds about rotors blowing out and the track not getting cleaned up fast enough at the end of the race. Denny Hamlin winds up winning, but there were a lot of unhappy NASCAR fans, unless you were a Denny Hamlin fan, apparently.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, this was one of the best finishes I've seen in a long, long time.
What I've heard.
And the thing is, Denny, as I mentioned in my column, actually it's going to be coming up here shortly, it'll be posted shortly, is that, this is a guy who's such a veteran. He knows, he's almost has like a sixth sense when it comes to guys who are racing around him, especially his teammates. I mean, Chase Briscoe and Christopher Bell. I mean, it was a 3-man JGR finish, and it looked for a long time like Bell was going to win it, and then Denny just he knew where to go. It's like he knew where his homies were going, and he went the exact opposite direction and winds up winning the race. Great finish for him. And he talked a little bit after the race, and that was most of the story that I wrote in my column, was not so much Denny winning. And now, don't get me wrong, it was a great finish, like I said, but he did pay tribute to Kyle Busch. And, the thing that kept on going through my mind as I watched that race yesterday, Jason, was that, we knew Kyle wasn't going to be at Charlotte. We knew that because, they made the announcement that Thursday morning that he had a severe illness and he was not going to be there that weekend. So we all kind of expected that he was not going to be there. And then, of course, we get the incredibly tragic news that he passed away. But yesterday in Nashville was kind of like the first, even though it was the second race after Kyle's passing, it was kind of like the first race of the impact of Kyle being gone really hit me. I mean, it was like a conundrum where I was just looking at the scoreboard. Where's Kyle? What's he doing? And it's just, you're so ingrained after 25 years. That guy was racing for 25 years in NASCAR. I was really amazed when I looked at that stat, and just to see him not there, I think it really finally hit home to a lot of people. But Denny, to his credit, he paid tribute to Kyle. He said that Kyle, said that he learned the most from Denny and vice versa. So it was a good race, definitely a good race.
It certainly was. What was going on with all the rotors blowing out?
Nashville is a very unique racetrack.
It's a concrete track. I know it's a concrete track.
Well, the thing is that they've always had issues. I mean, even back, when they were quote unquote real popular back, in the 2008, 2009, 2010, when they had the trucks running there, it's just a very difficult track that chews up parts, especially brakes and rotors, and that's what they were having yesterday. And then, of course, we had it was a really weird race with crashes that shouldn't have happened. I mean, so many guys, like Bubba Wallace.
I saw it.
Yeah, I don't know where that one came out of. There were just so many guys that were just involved in wrecks that should never have happened. I mean, these are professionals, and they just were in the wrong place, the wrong time. I don't know how you want to even describe it, but just they had mistakes and they were out of the race early. So Nashville's a good track. I know that they still want to bring the race to the downtown track, but I don't think we're ever going to see that happen. So I think if they want to continue racing in Nashville, Nashville Super Speedway is going to be a good place for it to be. But I think you're going to always see some kind of mechanical failures just because it seems to be inherent with that type of track for whatever reason.
Where are we now in this season? Coming out of the All-Star break, the All-Star race, if you will, Tyler Reddick, it felt like was winning everything for a long time. And it feels like now this season is starting to sort of settle. Shane Van Gisbergen finishing fifth, as much as I like to mock him as only being able to win road races, you had Shane Van Gisbergen finishing fifth in this race. So he continues to improve on the ovals. Where are we? Kyle Larson still looking for that first win of the season. Hasn't won, over a year? Give me some sense as to where this season is settling into here in the last minute and a half.
You're using the perfect words, settling in. That's exactly what we're doing. And, we're going to see some really strange racing, I in my opinion, over the next 2.5 months at least, because you've got places like Michigan coming up next weekend. You've got Sonoma coming up. You've got the Brickyard 400 coming up at the end of July. So it's going to be a very unusual time. But, now with NASCAR no longer having the win and you're in to the playoffs, that's going to change things as well for this year too. I mean, even though guys may win a race, they may not even qualify for the playoffs. So it's just going to be that kind of a weird situation. So you're going to see guys who haven't won will win, and guys that have won are not going to win. So I think Kyle Larson's going to win. I think that Tyler Reddick is not going to win for at least another couple more months. So it's going to be a real big toss-up. It's going to be a total change from what we've seen over the first third of the season.
Not that I ask you to do the betting stuff on this show, but Tyler Reddick's plus 360 to win the Cup Series championship. Denny Hamlin at plus 450. And then Kyle Larson, who hasn't won, is at plus 650 along with Ryan Blaney. If you were putting money on it right now, where are you going?
Denny Hamlin, without question.
Wow.
Denny, just because it's not just because he won yesterday, but because he's had obviously so much sadness, tragedy. He lost his father in a horrible fire. His mother got hurt really badly, and he still has not won that championship.
Jerry Bonkowski does a great job. Check out his work, essentiallysports.com, and check out the auto racing section, and you'll see Jerry's work there. Always appreciate you, my friend. Be well.
Sounds good. We'll talk to you next week, Jason.
Just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Monday. Tomorrow's show? I don't know. We'll figure it out. Maybe Kurt Helin, maybe Dennis Bernstein. Because the NBA Finals start on Wednesday. Kurt is kind of wasted on a Wednesday. He might be sleeping on a bench by the Riverwalk somewhere by now. Just having a hard time finding hotel accommodations. Because he didn't think he was going to be going to San Antonio. So we'll talk with Kurt or Dennis tomorrow on the show. Any big stories break, we'll cover them. The French Open tennis, which I have not talked about in the show. If you had a betting favorite in this thing, chances are you've already lost your money as we go into the second week because none of them are left standing in this thing, Sammy Arnell. I don't know if you had any. Did you have any? No? Yeah?
Jason.
Oh, boy.
Jason.
There we go.
This is the breakout. This is what those of us who watch those young tennis players coming up through the ranks have been waiting for about 6 months at this point.
Uh-huh.
This is Joao Fonseca.
Wow.
His time. This is his time. This is where he makes his mark.
19
This
years
is where
old.
he joins that upper echelon in men's tennis. Joao Fonseca, you will remember the name. He has been coming for a little bit now, and he is here to stay, Jason Page.
This may not age well. And I'm noting the time in the captain's log for that reason, because we will have some fun with you if it doesn't end well. Who knows? Maybe an American. Maybe there'll be an American standing tall at the end of this thing. Francis Tiafoe is still there. You're not that hard, bruh. You're not that hard. If you missed it, go and watch the highlights of his last match. All right. Before we go, a couple of reminders. Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast, Monday through Friday. We have an audio version of the show available. It is growing rapidly. We've got bonus podcasts there wherever you get your podcasts: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Odyssey, Amazon. They're all there. Go and subscribe to the audio version of the podcast. 45 minutes there for you each afternoon. Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. This is the place for all things Sports Wrap with Jason Page. The Monday through Friday TV version of the show. Sports Wrap shorts, 1 to 3 minute long videos when big news breaks. And now, Sports Wrap Originals launching today. These are special videos exclusively on YouTube. Sports Wrap Originals, our first Sports Wrap Original today, is the 5 players that could have the biggest impact, the most importance to these NBA Finals. Go and subscribe to the Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. I promise you will not be disappointed. Without any further delay on this Monday edition of Sports Wrap, it's time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends, on a serious note, Claude Lemieux's brain will be donated to the famed Boston University Research Center that studies CTE to try and get some answers. Because in a situation like his, where somebody takes their own life, that's all a family wants is answers. Hopefully they get those answers for whatever it may wind up being, as they will study the brain of Claude Lemieux, Sam Yarnell.
This is, it feels like, my immediate reaction when this news came out yesterday was, this feels like it could be like a super monumental thing in hockey. Like, it feels, the way that we, for a good, 10-year period in football, talked about Junior Seau, and, still to this day, I'm not saying that we don't talk about him anymore, right? But still to this day, remember him. Feels like that's what we could end up doing with Claude Lemieux. This was a weird one because I don't know if I didn't realize it at the time or I didn't really accept it at the time, but I grew up watching Claude Lemieux play. It's not like he's this guy from forever ago. He played when I was a kid. When I started watching hockey, he was still in the league. So yeah, it's a very tough moment for hockey. And the fear, I think, through a lot of hockey fans is, what if this turns into freaking concussion, like from the NFL? What if that's what this becomes and it changes hockey as we know it? I don't know. We're in for an interesting next few months, years with this whole thing.
I agree. And obviously, the mental health aspect will play into it as well. Odds and ends, Sam Yarnell. The Yankees score 13 runs in the third inning yesterday against the Sacramento, soon-to-be Las Vegas A's. They send 18 men to the plate. They don't hit a single home run in scoring 13 runs, Sam Yarnell. How does that happen?
Jason, that wasn't even the most interesting part of this game for the Yankees offense. The most interesting part of this game was they scored. They did all what you said in one inning. They had in the other 8 0 runs and 0 hits. All of their offense for the entire game came from that one inning. They had a couple of walks, I think, that were immediately erased by double plays. They had literally one inning of offense, and it carried them the entire game. I saw that and I was shocked. That maybe I got to go back and do some more research. Maybe the first time in baseball history that's happened, that a team has scored double-digit runs in one inning and not gotten a hit in a single other one.
Final seconds of the show. Jesus Sanchez, tough to be the Blue Jays right fielder yesterday. He gets drilled with a ball thrown from the stands by a kid who thought he just wanted to play catch. The kid got thrown out of the game, by the way, Sam Yar. Now, should they have thrown the kid out of the game? He was like 11 years old. Come on.
I understand why the Orioles wanted to get out ahead of it. I mean, probably not, but, you put the ball in the court of the Blue Jays to go out and find the kid and make him a Blue Jays fan for life.
There you go. That'll wrap it up for us. Thanks to Kurt Helin. Thanks to you, Sam Yar. Now, we're all back here on a Tuesday for another edition of Sports Wrap. Where's the time gone? We'll see you tomorrow.